Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Amber. I am so excited for having you here and just getting to share you with this incredible audience of parents and families and all the things that you do and how you help the world. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Nellie. I'm really stoked to talk to you and your audience. I feel like we already bantered for 15 minutes that y'all didn't even hear. So just wait, we could probably talk for 4 hours, but we won't keep you that long.
No, it's so true. We both, we just have a heart for helping moms, helping families, and just be the best that we can. And I met Amber a while ago working on we were partnered with a bunch of other people on another project, and again, having to do with families. So I'm just so excited. I've been able to be on your podcast, and now you get to be on mine. And okay, so I want to know, Amber, because you kind of fascinate me and all the things that you do, and your beautiful, wonderful family. So tell us a little bit about your family, kind of where you guys are, what life looks like for you. So just give us some details about you.
Okay, well, let's see. I am a mom of 4 boys, all boys. Currently, they are 9, 11, 12 and 14. I always have to pause because their ages keep changing and it's really quite annoying and I can't keep it straight always. And we live in Southern California, just outside of San Diego. And we've lived here for a couple of years. We moved in about 9 months before COVID and lockdown and all that stuff. So prior to that, we were traveling a lot. So we had some experience homeschooling. So we started homeschooling, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago now, and traveled a lot and then kept going after that because it was working quite well for my kids and our family. And I'm married. I've been with my husband now for, I guess we met 20 years ago. So, and I really was primarily stay-at-home mom, managing and coordinating, homeschool and life and all the activities and all the things for a long time until a couple of years ago. And then I got to kind of start my own business. My husband pulled back on his work and allowed me to I felt like, I don't know, I'm guessing you can relate. I felt like I was like, ready to run like on a treadmill, and finally like my feet got to hit the ground and I was like, yeah, let's do it. So like a lot of people now are like, for instance, I wrote my first book when we were traveling and people were like, well, how, I don't understand how you're doing that. Was it hard? Do you get writer's block? And because you're going through that process right now again with writing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, let me add it. Like I've been dying to do these things. They've been whirling in my head for a decade now. And now I finally get the opportunity to do it, but it's because it's aligned with something that's important to me, right? Like you could give me a whole list of to-dos that I would happily bitch and whine about, excuse me. But if it's something that's really important to me and something that's helping other families and helping moms, then I am raring to go. I'm so excited.
Yes, I love that. Our stories are so similar. Married for a couple decades, 4 boys for you, 4 girls for me, and the traveling, the homeschooling, the whole shebang. And yeah, this is year 7 of homeschooling for us, and it's actually our last year. So I'm going into my last semester. I'm having some hyperventilating times and some really excited times. It's very confusing.
Yeah. I've been applying for schools for next year too. So same thing. It's very like I'm half super excited and half very cautiously optimistic. I mean,
yes.
We'll see.
We're there too. And it's funny you brought up a line. So I do like the word, right? My word every year. And I actually have them printed on a rock because I like the whole like I'm going to write it in stone type thing, and then I have a rock garden down in my living room and I pick a word for myself and we also pick a word for the family. And we really follow through with those each year, sometimes like holding the family rock, especially like 3 inches from my daughter's face and being like, no, remember, this is what we're focusing on. Our family word, our family word for 2020, whatever year we're in, was honesty. So there was some times I was like, right here, guys, right here. But anyway, my word for 2021 personally was align. And it's so true. because once I started aligning my passions with my work, and it really was like, oh, I got footing and I was ready to run. And, I've been writing for a long time. And so I love your story. And yeah, we're just destined to be friends, work together, all the things.
Right. Can I say something about the word
Yes,
align? Because
please.
one of the things I get a lot, especially because my first book, Stretch Marks, is about like overwhelmed moms and practical strategies and how do you reduce stress. And one of the like myths I always like to smash about being overwhelmed or busy is that, because I love being busy and I have a feeling you're the same way.
Yes.
I love it. But when busy equals overwhelm and stress, it's because what you're busy doing and what you're
Mm,
busy thinking about and what you're busy spending money on and your time on is not aligned with what's important to you.
yes.
So that's when busy equals overwhelm, stress, anxiety, stomach pains, not sleeping, all that stuff. But when your time and your energy and your resources and your attention are focused, are aligned with what's really important to you, then man, there's no busy. There's like not enough hours in the day to do all the stuff that you want to do because it's refueling you. It's not exhausting you. It's
Yes.
like, it's like what they say about like couples where, one person is the extrovert and one person is the introvert. And so going to a party really, refuels and energizes one member of the relationship. And the other one is like, oh my God, I need a nap. I need quiet. I need everybody to leave me alone. I need to refuel after, because that took a lot out of me. And I feel like being
Yes. You just
overwhelmed
described my husband and I. Yeah.
so many couples, it's so common. It's so common, right? Because we attract, I mean, that's a whole nother like episode, right? But I think that, when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed, instead of finding ways to take stuff off your list, one kind of backward, I like, kind of a hacky way to look at it is, what can you add to your list that's totally aligned with what's important to you? Because sometimes you can't take stuff off your list. Sometimes 98% of the stuff on your list falls to you. Nobody else is going to pick it up. And so you either have to let it go and then, deal with that frustration and angst and anxiety. And sometimes that is the right thing to do. And you just say, that's not going to get done today. That's not going to get done this month. But other times it's, you feel like you can't let go of anything. And in that case, I highly encourage people to try adding something to your list, even though it seems completely counterintuitive, and see if that doesn't energize you. And then somehow make all of those kind of tedious, annoying tasks seem far less draining because you just refueled yourself by adding something to that crazy busy schedule instead of deleting it. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, yes, so much. I mean, I look at my schedule. People hear like all the things that we do, family business, personal business, homeschooling, like all the things. And they're like, I literally do not understand how you have hours in the day. I'm like, actually, if you look at my schedule, it's just partitioned out. It looks pretty plain Jane. And they're like, no. And so, but to your point, there's some times, and I just came back from this trip, and we're recording this around the holidays. And so there was times that I would be sitting on a couch, right? Looking not busy, right? In my mind and in my heart, I'm like, I am running a marathon because I am so overwhelmed right now. And no, I'm not doing anything per se, but I am so busy because I wasn't aligned, right? I wasn't aligned with, to your point, exactly that. And Mel Robbins, I follow her all the time, love Mel Robbins. And she was just she's had several of these videos, but it was, this woman out there, and she was like, no one is coming. Like, no one is coming to do the things. You need to do the things if you want to do the things. And you know what? You don't need to do the things if you don't need to do the things, And so I love Mel Robbins, and she's so like to the point, and like when I need like a, pragmatic, like slap in the face, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go listen to some Mel.
No one is coming. That's hilarious. It's super scary when you first hear that sentence, and then it's like empowering, like, okay,
exactly.
So what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do now then if nobody's coming? I love it.
And don't do the things that you don't need to do, right? In our heads, there's so many things that like the shoulds, right? I talk about this a lot. All the shoulds, you're like, well, actually, should I? Like, do I need to do that? And when you start having that or that reverse loop that can go, circle back and hit them all out of the way, you're like, oh, well, maybe I actually don't need to do that, and I can work on this instead. So yes, align was a huge word, and I definitely did that in 2021. Okay, so you guys, you amazing listeners out there have gotten a small taste of the awesomeness of Amber. And I want to know, so you're obviously a leader. You're a leader in your home. You're a leader of yourself. You're a leader of women and moms. Where did this leadership come from? Is this something that started being instilled in you when you were little? Did you have people that you looked up to that were helping others? Where did this all come from for you?
I love this question,
Little
Nellie.
chuckle.
Well, the first thing that comes into mind is that I was very bossy as a kindergartner. And so, what some people might interpret as leadership, others people might interpret as bossy and controlling. So it's like the flip side, right? Of every characteristic has a flip side. When one side that's going to serve you in life, and one side where it might hurt you.
Pendulum swings a little too far.
Yeah. Or you just have to mold it in a certain direction. So,
yeah.
My best answer would be that I think I've kind of always had these qualities. It showed up in different ways, like, having to separate me from my friend George in kindergarten because I just apparently would just boss him around all the time. And so they had to put us in separate classes. So,
for George.
yeah. And I grew up an only child of a single mom.
Okay.
So I think that because of that and the modeling that showed me was different than a lot of leaders you might talk to. So it wasn't like I was, had role models as a child of people who were, leading companies or leading their families in big ways or taking risks in unique ways. Instead, I saw a mom who, I think she would report feeling totally like insecure and unsure and nervous and second guessing herself. But all I saw was somebody who, if there was a sprinkler broken, figured out how to fix the sprinkler, somebody who like worked all day and then came home at night and helped me with my homework, and somebody who did all the things that needed to be done and was, very pragmatic and responsible and logical. And so I think from an early age, I just saw that, you put the hard work in, you take, you have patience and you're consistent. But I kind of was naturally a goal setter. Like I call it an achievement junkie, which is, kind of mean, but trying to just be funny with myself about it, because I do get a high off of, solving a problem, achieving the next thing, checking off the stuff on the to-do list, even if you've done it already, writing it down, making the box so I can check it off. I love that stuff. And the biggest learning for me has been to take that and not sabotage myself so that I have problems to solve, not draw people into my life that are full of problems so that I can help them. Right. So I think a lot of us do that unintentionally. So instead I've said, okay, I want to solve problems. I don't want to draw problems to my life to solve. I'd like to have it on my own terms. I'd like to seek the problems that I want to solve. Of course I want to have friendships where I'm helpful, but I don't want that to be the primary foundational dynamic in our relationship where I'm the helper and I attract people who are really, really broken or something like that, which I think a lot of people in the health and wellness field do that in their personal life. And then you end up kind of with lopsided friendships. So that's something that I'm always very cautious of because I've learned from past mistakes. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And, I think, so I too was raised by a single mom, and it was just me for the first 8 years. My dad passed away when I was super young. I was only 1 when he passed away. And then it was just my mom and I. And yes, it was, and she was remarried to Steve, who I also called dad because they started dating when I was, 4 or 5 years old. But anyway, so she remarried when I was 8. But I still remember, like, he would be like, the toilet's clogged, got to call someone. And my mom's like, why? Like, let's go fix the toilet, And it was just, my mom was always that one that
Yeah.
was like, let's go fix it. There's a problem. We're going to fix it. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it being, having that be your world, especially during those young developmental years,
Yeah.
is it changes the trajectory of everything going forward for sure. But yeah, strong women for
Totally.
sure.
And Nellie, and my husband also was a single child raised by a single mom.
Really?
Yeah. So he had a very similar, dynamic growing up. And what's interesting is that I've seen how that has informed the roles we've taken on as a
Mm,
married couple, because because we're very different. And so we just go to who can do this best,
mm,
period. And that's what, it's not like we had decades of like having to rethink, oh wait, this is the dad's job, but mom is
mm,
better at it. How do we do that? Or vice versa. Like, we didn't have to undo
right.
that thought process. And so it's been really nice because, if there's something to, that needs to be put together here with like I just put together a pool table for the holidays for a Christmas gift. And the directions were like one picture with a bunch of arrows, and that's it. And not only that, but one of the legs, the pre-drilled holes were drilled incorrectly. So they give me like 2 left legs. They give me like 3 left legs and 1 right leg. But man, Jamie went across the street. He borrowed a power drill from our neighbor, brought it back, and I drilled the holes and I put it all together while he took care of like keeping the boys over on the other side of the house so that they couldn't see what I was doing. And like, that was he would have wanted to throw the thing in the garbage because it wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, he
Yeah.
just been so frustrated. Whereas I was like, this is so fun. I get to put this together and use this power drill. And I was like, so excited about it, and he's like, oh my gosh, thank God she's doing that. And I'd be happy to like clean the kitchen and get these boys to the skate park and do those things. So that's been a really nice bonus of being able to be in a relationship where you can both accept and acknowledge your own strengths, and where it's not kind of clouded by, well, this is how it's supposed to be, or should, right?
Right. The shoulds.
I should be able to do this. Oh, I should be the one, taking care of the kids right now. And he should be putting together this table.
Yeah.
Why? Like, that's not going to
Yeah.
benefit anybody in our house
Yeah.
at all.
That's
And
so true.
the table might end up like sideways.
That's so true. And I never really thought about that before, but yeah, totally different circumstances, but yeah, my husband too. And so, and we've been together since we were 18. And
Yeah.
so we've literally grown up together, and it's just really interesting. And I think that there's so many different ways to have families and relationships and everything. And there's, 6 and 1/2 dozen of the other. I think that's how that weird saying goes. And,
That's good.
but when in our situation, having been together since we were kids, essentially, then we've been able to grow up together and find those strengths and weaknesses together. And which was a super challenge. There's some people that don't get together until they're in their 30s, 40s, 70s, whatever. And they already have those established, right? Like, I am this, right? I had no I am statements when I met my husband, right? I'm like, I am Nellie. That's it. I am a student. There we go.
Yeah.
And so all of those we developed together, which was really fun and interesting, and a lot of times a trial and a lot of times a success. So anyway, so I was going to ask you how that really folded into your marriage, and you already answered that. So thank you so much. And in doing that, and the conversations that you guys have with one another and how you come together and then parent your kids, how has all of that kind of evolved into that. I mean, like you said, you just find what you are good at and you follow along with that wave that you're doing. And I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, and tell me how that feeds into your parenting of your 4 boys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thought came to mind first before I answered that part of the question as you were speaking is, there are times when you say, like, how do you communicate that to one another? Because sometimes people fall into things very naturally, or you're naturally good communicators, but Lord knows if you're not, or if you, I mean, we all have struggles with that. And there are times when, because we call it like being the alpha, so there are times when, normally those divisions of roles are very clear, like, okay, he's the alpha, he's going to take the lead in this and I'm going to back off, and vice versa. And normally that's fine. And every once in a while, there will be a case where we're both trying to be the alpha, and he will say, hey, can you let me go ahead and be the alpha on this? He'll just say it like that. And I'll be like, got it.
Yep.
No problem. Let's do that. And that has saved us a ton,
Yes.
and I don't quite say it in the same way, but if we had this contractor we worked with for a while he was so condescending, and I wanted to strangle him because I was like pregnant, and he would just turn and talk to Jamie all the time. And I was like, I'm the one making these decisions. No. I wanted to strangle him.
Yeah.
And I would turn to Jamie and be like, you talk to this guy, because seriously, I'm gonna tell him off. Like, I cannot work with this person. And so, so I could have said, why don't you be the alpha on this? Because
sure.
It displeases me. But something, I have a story I think that your listeners will like when it comes to leadership and kids in the family, because all my kids are pretty close in age. I forget the age difference in your kids.
I only have a 4.5-year spread from oldest to
Okay,
youngest.
so we're the same.
Yeah.
It's like 5 year, 2 months.
Okay.
So almost the same. And my third is the most natural leader, I guess you could say. And so I don't think it's odd if you have a bunch of kids, because it's seldom maybe the oldest, but I think people on the outside assume that the oldest person would be kind of the one everybody looks to for, to be the role model, to be the guide. And so it was really quite interesting to me when just in this last couple of years, he has evolved, my third, into, and they all play music together. So man, like when you're playing music together, there's a lot of, he kind of rose up into the one being like, okay, well, why don't you come in on this 8 count? Why don't you do this? And when you do that, the problem is his delivery was crap. I mean, terrible. And so was causing a lot of frustration and eye rolls and irritation and problems. And, but he was correct. He was correct in what he was trying to say. It was the delivery. The delivery was terrible. So there was a lot of coaching, and a lot of it was misunderstanding, because in his mind, they should have known. They're older than him. So if they're not doing something correctly or on key or blah, 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 it's because they were doing it on purpose.
Gotcha.
So he was frustrated because he was like, well, I'm only 9 and they're not doing this. And so if they're not doing it, it's because they're not doing it on purpose, and that's not cool.
Right.
So part of it was explaining, okay, not everybody learns the same way and the same speed and all of this. And really, because I think at first he was like, yeah, right. Like, didn't really believe it. So part of it was that. And then I called an old therapist of mine who I love, especially for like spot treatments, like, oh my gosh, I have this issue. And we kind of talked it through. And I said, because he's kind of obsessed with, like, my friend is the director of a museum. And he was like, so you're like the boss of all these people. You could tell there was this fascination with like people in charge.
Right.
And so we decided on this way to explain it to him. And I remember so clearly we were at the beach and they were building sandcastles. And I said, hey, I was thinking about this thing. And, you have a lot of these amazing leadership qualities, but there's leaders who are CEOs. I use that word. a term, and there are leaders who are dictators.
Mm.
They're both in charge of a lot of people, and they're both responsible for a lot of things. But one of them has people who want to be there and follow, presumably a good
Sure.
CEO.
Good. Yeah.
Right. Um, in my example, it was a good CEO, and followers who want to follow and be there and support you and the mission or whatever. And then you have a dictator who is still in charge of a lot of people, but given the opportunity, those people might oust you at any moment. They're not following you because they want to or because they respect you. They're following because they have to. And it's very, very different kind of leadership. And man, it took one conversation and that clicked. And so then the reminders became like, okay, are you saying that in a CEO tone? Or are you saying that in a dictator tone? And how could we say it differently? And that it really shifted. And I felt like we were able to kind of hone those natural leadership qualities into a more adaptive, a more positive route, whereas like it could have gone south really, really terribly.
Wow, that is great. I love that, CEO versus dictator, and it's so true. And so I see leadership in all of my kids, as I'm sure you see it with yours. It's just different kinds of leadership, but who rises above to kind of do this, do that, it is interesting. And having them so close in age too, I think things can shift over time between them. I have twins in the middle. And so even between them, they play volleyball, with the hats that they wear. They always have since they were babies. And so it is interesting, but just taking note and being able to catch those moments, and whenever they are expressing some leadership, even if it isn't well delivered, leadership, and being able to move them in the right direction, because maybe later on he will fall back and someone else will, maybe your fourth will rise up a little bit, which is great for your fourth, because we have to know how part of being a leader is being able to take direction and, take that criticism too. I'm still working on that one myself.
So hard.
So hard. Yes. One of my kids, especially, like she has an Iron Man suit on when it comes to any sort of criticism. And we're like, no, we're just like trying to help you out here. And you could just see, simmering happening behind her eyes. And we're like, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. And I think it always, like, when I speak to parents about a quality that they're really struggling with in their children, one of the things I talk about is like the flip side. So where you say like, okay, just to yourself, not even to them, you remind yourself, okay, where will this stubbornness, where will this Iron Man suit serve her?
Right.
Okay, well, in this type of situation with bullies, with, boys that are trying to, convince her of things, or drugs or alcohol or college, whatever, she's going to be like, that's stupid. You guys are, that's a terrible idea. I'm not doing that.
And it has come in handy already. Yes. She is 14 and she's 14. Oh yeah, she's 14. See, it's hard to keep up with the ages, I just remember when they were little and I was like 5, 3, 3, 1, like that's what it was. And then it kept changing. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, she's 14 now and 8th grade. And yeah, it's already definitely come in handy there. And it's just learning how to use whatever they're equipped with. Right. Learning how to use whatever they're, naturally equipped with, innately equipped with, in order to benefit them, the world, and those around them. So, okay. Well, in the 65-70, we really focus on, I really focus on helping families, helping parents, helping kids. I work with the whole family all together because, as you and I know, a lot of times parents need just as much help as kids do, right? And so I know I do. And so we focus on self-disciplined leadership and what that looks like, seeing a problem, being able to figure out a solution, actually sticking to the plan that you made, and coming out with an accomplishment on the other side, even if that accomplishment is failure, because that's just failing forward and going forward, right? And learning something from that. And Jim Rohn, I love his definition um, of discipline, and that is the bridge between goal and accomplishment. And that is really, I'm a very visual person, and that is what I see when I see self-discipline leadership and all the different ways that that can manifest itself in what we're doing. And with you, you really work, your book, your wonderful book is Stretch Marks, is really, like you said, helping moms figure out practical ways that they can soothe and they can get through things. And so I want you to just be able, if you could just give our listeners, some of those practical means of being able to have that self-care, especially going into a new year. But I mean, let's be honest, any day, 365 days a year, we need that self-care, but it doesn't always look like a manicure, right? It's not always going to look like.
I'm glad you brought up manicure. And I just had written a piece on this. And I try to call it true self-care versus surface self-care, or even pseudo self-care. And here's the difference as I see it. And it's going to look different. So for some people, a manicure might be true self-care.
Right.
For most of us, it's going to be a surface self-care. But the difference is, and I'll start with the pseudo or the surface self-care. Is that something that in the moment feels really good, feels really lovely. It's wonderful. It could be a manicure. It could be a walk outside. It could be a chat with a really, really funny friend. But surface self-care is something that doesn't tend to linger. The positive effects don't go on. You come back home and the house is a mess. They forgot to take out the trash. So the garbage can, so the garbage truck came and went, and your cortisol levels, your adrenaline levels are all the way back up. You're even more frustrated than you would have been had you not gone and gotten that massage, because now you're like, I was supposed to be relaxed. I went and got this beautiful massage. I spent $100, and now the kitchen is a disaster. You guys are fighting. Why did I even, you're more upset than you were before.
Yes.
And we all know, like, that's happened to all of us, right? Because you're like, I'm supposed to feel great now. And now I don't. So that's frustrating because the expectations are high. So you're like, why didn't this just make me feel like I was on cloud 9 all day? So that's one of the problems with surface self-care, is the expectations. The second problem is doesn't have these lingering effects. And often we end up doing surface self-care, something that maybe is true self-care for somebody else. And they said, oh, you know what you need to do is you need to go do this.
You should, right?
You should, you're going to feel great. And maybe that's because it really helps them and they're just trying to help you.
Right.
And so you figure, all right, sure, I'll try it. And then you're like, that was terrible. Or it was fine, but it wasn't lingering. So true self-care, by definition of the opposite of that, is, it's going to be something that is very personal to you. So it could be a silent room for an hour, a puzzle, and a glass of tea, hot tea. Like it's something that refuels you on a very deep level, that the impact of which goes on farther than just those 30 minutes. It's kind of like, when you exercise, you don't exercise just so that you're healthy for those 30 minutes. You exercise so that you're healthy the rest of the day. So self-care is good. Self-care, true self-care, is something like that. So I often encourage people to, at a time when they're not needing it, well, you always need it, thinking of 2 or 3 things that are really, really refueling to you. So it might be, and like I mentioned, talking to a friend on the phone, some friends you talk to and you're like, you're laughing, you're having a great time, but maybe their humor is really sarcastic or they're really dark, and it's funny, it's enjoyable to witness, but afterwards you kind of feel like you hate the world and you feel despondent about the future or whatever. That's not good self-care.
Yeah.
That's something that leaves you kind of worse off than you began. So when it comes to self-care, I always start with, making sure that what you're going to do is actually as close as you can get to true self-care. That's not a surface self-care. That you acknowledge the benefits of it. Because often as parents will say, oh yeah, I know I should do this, or, oh, well, they, so-and-so has a soccer game and then I got to get this ready. And then I got to take back these Amazon packages or whatever. You have your long list and it just becomes another to-do another like obligation almost, oh, I was going to meditate today. I was going to go for a bike ride, or I was going to go read this book by myself and I didn't. Then you're just beating yourself up for not doing the self-care. So I always like to, start with a mindset piece where you're really reminding yourself of like, it's not just for you, right? We all know this. You're going to have more patience. You're going to have more, tolerance for, noise level or, arguing. You're going to just have so much more presence of mind for everybody in your family, not just for yourself, if you take that time to have some self-care. The other thing is, bring up Mel Robbins, think of like nobody, what did she say? Nobody's coming.
Nobody's coming.
Nobody's coming. Nobody's coming to offer you some magical self-care. Nobody's coming. So you got to ask for it yourself, and you got to be specific. So, so if you decide, oh, you know what, I want a 10-minute, walk this morning with my coffee around the block by myself, not like, oh, why don't you bring one of the kids? They can, no.
Take the dogs.
You can do that after. You can do that in addition, but not instead of, not in lieu of. So, think of something that you want and then ask specifically. Say, hey, sometime between breakfast and lunch, or right when we get home from soccer practice, can you XYZ? Whether you're talking to your kids or your partner, can you guys do this? I'm going to do this. Here are the benefits of it. Oh my gosh, I think I'm going to be so much more pleasant to be around at dinner time if I take this.
You guys want me to do this.
And they do, because they really do want you to be happy. Yes, they don't want a crabby mom. One of the things, we can jump into like actual strategies, but one of my favorite, Nellie, for the past year has been taking a shower in the afternoon. Like, everybody knows like those hours between like 3 and 6 o'clock that are interminable. And, everybody's hangry and everybody's patience is low. And, it's a prime time for, arguments to happen, for accidents to happen, for people to forget things, or, it's can be a hot mess those hours. And you're like, oh my gosh, we still have to do dinner and baths and, homework. And we said we were going to do a movie night. Well, and you just start thinking like, oh my gosh, there's like 7 more hours until bedtime. You're like, I've already been awake for 50. How is that possible? So I've taken to like 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I don't care if you already took a shower at 10 o'clock in the morning, or you haven't showered in 3 days, whatever it is, I'll just be like, I'm going to take a shower. And I just go and get in the shower. And what's nice about that is that you're unplugged. You don't have your phone in there. You don't have your, computer. You don't have work things. And doing some sort of mindfulness practice while you're there, so that the purpose of the shower is not to then spend 10 minutes ranting and raving about yourself, about whatever happened that morning, or planning the next 6 hours of your day, or worrying about next week. It's really to get pregnant.
That's a different kind of shower, Amber.
That is totally different kind of shower. Don't do that unless you really want to. To get present. That's so funny. To get present and to calm your nervous system, so that we're still giggling, to calm your nervous system, to ground yourself with the water, and really set your central nervous system so that you can attack or, thrive really, and not just survive those ending hours of the day. And man, I found it so incredibly helpful. Now, to other people, that might look like a walk around the block, or go sit in your car, go get in your car, drive 2 blocks away and listen to music, listen to your favorite playlist for 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be that long either, which I think a lot of us use that as a reason not to do something. Like, oh man, I was going to do a 45-minute hike today. Set yourself up, right? With exactly. As reasonable as a self-care request as possible. And the short ones can be really, really impactful. Like 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day of something that you're doing every day versus 1 hour once a week. Like
Yeah.
I say, do whatever you're most likely to actually do.
Oh, I love a shower. If I'm feeling like the world's gunk is on me, all
Yeah.
the things, I'm like, I know I just need to go shower. I don't like, I just stop. I'm like, I just need to go shower. So I
Yeah.
can totally understand that one. And something else that brought up with the car, many times I just like to go sit in my car. I love to be hot. Like I don't know. I grew up in Michigan. I was cold there to my bones. I don't know. I like to be
Yeah.
hot. And so even when it's hot outside, I will go sit in my car. Some just not long, I'm not having like
Like a
carbon
sauna.
monoxide, fix or anything. And, but yes, like a sauna. And I'm just like, it's so nice in here. But whenever I need to have a one-on-one discussion with somebody, I love, and maybe this is a big family thing, and I don't know if you can relate to this at all, but I do love to go in the car, and they all think I'm weird, and that's fine. They can think I'm weird, but I'm like, then I don't have to worry about anyone trying to peep around the corner.
Right.
And like, I'm trying to have a conversation with you, and I'm like, how many doors are here? How many people are trying to listen under doors, or, trying to form opinions about something they don't need an opinion about, and all the
Right.
things.
Right.
And so I love to go in the car. It sets us up for success when we're trying to have one-on-one conversations, or mama just needs some peace.
Yeah, and you really only need one or two. Like I also talk about like the in the moment
Mm,
stress and anxiety fixes, and then the more preventative ones. So the things like, meditation, or a 5-minute morning routine, or stretching at night, or listening to music in the afternoon. You have your ones that take a little longer, or you can do, as you're doing something else. But, I also love the in the moment, like, oh my gosh, I'm so upset right now. Or I just read this really frustrating email, or I just had this really frustrating interaction with my partner, or with one of my kids, or with the neighbor, whatever, it's countless, right? How many things. And so one of them that I love, have we talked about cross lateral movements before?
I know what you're talking about, but
Okay.
please go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is super simple and literally maybe a 60-second fix. And this is a tool, a practice that you can do for when you're ruminating, either in like a negative thought spiral, you're super frustrated, you're anxious. I mean, you can kind of use it for anything, where you're looking for a quick turnaround, where you're looking for a quick fix. And it's not a matter of like writing in your journal for 20 minutes, or going and calling a friend for half an hour. Either you don't have the time or space or energy, or sometimes maybe that's not serving you because that's just amplifying what you're already upset about. Sometimes it's great. You need to vent that out before you can move on. I get that. Other times it's your reaction is more of a triggered reaction. And it's not really, it's something that if it would have happened a different time of day or a different day, you would have been fine with it. But for some reason right now, it's really grating at you. That's when this might be the best thing to do. So a cross lateral movement is essentially any movement that your body makes that facilitates communication between your right and left hemispheres. So it keeps, so over here, like just picture like one part of your brain is like on skip, it's just like, it's stuck. So this is using a physical movement to get your brain communicating more effectively again. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can stop panicking. And I like it because you don't have to muscle your way through it. You just do these exercises and it's done. So here's what it is. You're going to take your left hand and have it be flat, your palm. You're going to take a right hand like a fist, and you're going to hit your left palm with your right hand 6 times as quickly as possible. And then you're going to reverse it. And if you could you do it, I can't do it 6 times each and talk and breathe at the same time, but you do that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you breathe. Now, if you can do that and breathe, and you're still like, blah, fumes coming out your ears, then you just add a mantra to it, like whatever it is that you're seeking to draw into your life. Like, I got this, I am love, whatever, any mantra that, or even just one word, peace, love, calm, light, joy, whatever. And you do that for say 60 seconds. And try it the next time this happens in your life, everybody listening, and, send Nellie a message, because I would love to hear if it works. I found it to be extremely, extremely wonderful, especially when I was doing podcasts regularly. And I would, everybody be quiet, da, 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 da. And then literally like right before I come on, somebody's screaming, somebody's doing this, somebody's knocking at my window, waving. And I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then I didn't want to show up in that state of mind
Right.
for my podcast. So I needed a reset that was legit and quick, which is hard to find. So that's one of the things, that's one of the in the moment strategies that I love. And I love ones that you don't have to talk yourself, like you don't have to completely reframe your entire mind, because it takes a while to do that.
Yeah.
Chewing gum is another one. So I always keep gum near me. Just like the fight or flight animalistic Neanderthal brain that we have, chewing tells your brain that you're not being chased by a tiger because you're eating, your brain thinks you're eating. So if your brain thinks that you're eating, it thinks, oh, okay, I can relax. I can send the blood back from your extremities to your brain, to your internal organs. I can reduce the amount of adrenaline and cortisol. I can start to balance things out. So I love brain hacks like that, where it's all about fooling your brain back into thinking that you're calm and you're safe, so that you can move on. Because otherwise, man, you just spin out of control and you can't function, you can't concentrate, and that's not serving you or serving you as a parent, right?
I think it's so important to be able to give yourself permission to explore these areas. And once you do find something that works, it might work forever. It might work for a day. And if it does only work for a day, give yourself permission to explore something else the next day. For me, one of the I'm definitely trying the whole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 thing. And I know one of my daughters that could probably use that too. But for me, so I've been in a couple of really bad car accidents before. And so when we just came back from our holiday travels, we spent 52 hours in a minivan in 7 days. It's a really long time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. 6 of us, and we're all pretty much adult size at this point, And so, anyway, driving through the mountains, we go through the Appalachian Mountains, someone is going to email me and be like, you pronounced that wrong. I know, because there's like 6 ways to pronounce it, no matter where you're from. I'm from Michigan, and that's how I pronounce it. So,
yeah, I love
anyway, I even stuttered because I knew someone was going to say something about it. Anyway, so go through there, and we're going through there at night. We drive through the night. My husband drives through the night. But every time we hit a curve, we do something like, I just feel my stomach begin to like super tense up. Like I'm doing like Peloton times 1,000, right?
Yeah.
And so tapping my collarbones really helps me in the moment. Yeah. And it's just been something that I found that helps, and it helps right now. Will it help later? I don't know, but right now it helps. And so my husband looks at me cross-eyed going, what the heck are you doing? I'm like, I am surviving this trip. That's what I'm doing right now. And I'm over here tapping my collarbones, and that's okay. And I look weird, and it's fine. But just finding those things and being able to explore, like a shower in the middle of the afternoon, right? And hitting your palms and all of these things. It's okay, because we're living in this crazy world and crazy lives. And, it just expands ever more once you pull yourself out and look at from an aerial view a little bit more. So just giving yourself permission to explore these ways of giving self-care, so important.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you're a visual person. So one of the strategies that I like to add, and I think I talk about I don't remember which thing, but it's, it has to do with, what is your super sense? And really, are you a more visual person? Are you a more auditory person? Are you a tactile, and using that to inform your decisions about your self-care. So both in a way to, to not prevent, but to minimize the stressors and the stimuli that are coming in. So say you're a visual person and you've got like piles and piles of laundry and papers out. And even sometimes just if you have a bunch of colored pillows on your bed, that could be visually overstimulating to you.
That's me.
So,
Yep.
taking care to reduce the visual stimulation that is amplifying your anxiety could be, maybe that's just literally, and I'm not saying like go spend 20 minutes putting away the laundry, grab a plain covered blanket, colored blanket, and put it over the laundry basket, throw the laundry basket in a closet for right now, put stuff under the bed, even taking stuff off the walls or down off the countertops for a little bit and putting them in drawers or under the bed so that you can minimize the amount of visual stimuli. And then when you need a boost, an emotional lift, using visual stimuli to lift yourself emotionally. So like, oh my God, there's a beautiful sunset out. I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to walk outside. I'm going to take it in, or, even just what you're watching on Netflix, is it visually inviting and stimulating? Is it a little harsh? Are you utilizing your super sense both to minimize stimuli that's maybe too much? So for instance, for me, I'm auditory. So I almost always have, and of course I can't see any right now, I almost always have ear covers. I found these little things called audio calm or something, and they're not devices. They're just little kind of foamy, not foamy, they're plasticky things, but they're supposed to kind of modulate the kind of the dirty, like the waves, the sound waves that go into your ears. And for me, at least, they work. I still hear everything. They're not blocking the sound, but it's making it less chaotic by the time it gets to my brain somehow. And so I will make sure to do that. Or sometimes I just have to, leave the house and go have my coffee out on a walk and then come back. And so, protecting myself when it comes to auditory stimuli. And then on the flip side, and this is something that I'm trying to work on because I don't do this enough, is, make a playlist of music that's specifically to suit each kind of mood that you're trying to draw in, whether you want to be energized or you want to be calmed or you want to be whatever. And I always like to recommend finding music that was particularly memorable to you during your like 14 to 24-year-old years, because that's when all your neural pathways were most plastic. And so, man, that stuff hits you on a visceral level, like so much more deeply than maybe a song you really loved from last year. Right. So it's just another hack to make it like even more effective.
Oh, so good. And yeah, so I am a total audio visual person. So both of them, there's this ride at Epcot Center at Disney World. It's called Soar. And you just sit in there and you like go up in these seats and there's this huge screen in front of you and there's music and you're just going. And I was like, this is heaven. It was so great, because it was calming music. It was visually stimulating. It was so great. And I find that funny because so we do have a Peloton here at home and all 6 of us use it every day. It is our quote unquote gym for homeschool. And so I'm the only one though that does the scenic ones. Everyone else is like, why do you do those? That's so weird. And I was like, I love the scenic rides. They're my jam. They're my favorite. I can get on there. I did a 45-minute one this morning. They're like, you're literally watching trees for 45 minutes. I'm like, I know, it's so great,
That's fantastic.
And I was like, hey, I was in New Zealand this morning. I don't know where y'all were, but I was in New Zealand this morning, and but it really feeds into that. And I talk about this too, because it's so important to know yourself. It's also important to know your kids, because if you are not an audio person and your kid is, and you have something crazy going on and they're super irritable, and then you're yelling at them for being irritable and saying you should be able to deal with this, right? And so having the whole family understand what those are for the family is so key. So key. Oh my goodness. Well, this has been so fun. We can obviously talk for hours, I think, about everything. Thank you so much for being on here. Before we go though, I want to know, tell us how everyone can find you and all the goods.
Yeah. Well, on Instagram, I'm at official Amber Trueblood. And my website is ambertrueblood.com. And I do have something. If you go to outsmartoverwhelm.com, I have a little bundle there with like a morning routine and an evening routine. And I think there's some meditations in there as well that are helpful for outsmarting overwhelm. And then my book, yeah, Stretch Marks.
Yay. Yes,
So check it out. It's
absolutely.
available on Amazon and on Audible if you like to listen to books. And it's an easy read, but there's a lot of there's a lot of practical strategies in there as well.
Absolutely. And we just got the tip of the iceberg here today. Thank you so much for being here. This was great. I can't wait to just continue to watch your journey and be able to work with you in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.